right, so today we're going to be talking about the blues, but more specifically, we're going to be talking about some interesting ways to approach the blues. So, if you haven't seen the chord scale video, refer back to this chord scale video so you can better understand what's going on here. In this video, we're going to be talking about where the notes are derived from in the blues progression, in the common blues progression, the 1-4-5 blues progression, and what scales you can play over them. The idea of this lesson is to try to get an idea of how we can play outside of the A minor scale when we're playing the blues. If you're a guitar player, you know that most of the blues that you first learn anyway, most of the blues songs on guitar are either in E or A minor, and you're using the iconic pentatonic shape to play, which is all well and good. But because of the harmonic structure of the blues and the chords that are in there, it's really an expansive harmony. So you can play quite a lot of things over the blues, and that's also why people love to jam on it. So that's what we're going to be talking about here. So the A minor blues, where does the A minor blues come from? Well, again, if you refer back to the chord scale video, then you might better understand this. But if it's your first time, we'll just walk through it. So the A minor scale derives from the C major scale. The C major scale is all naturals. So in this case, the A minor scale will be all naturals. So the A minor scale is A is the 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, E is 5, F is 6, and G is 7. For a blues progression, we're going to be playing a 1-4-5. The only difference is that we're going to be adding 7s to these chords. So 1-4-5 progression is probably the most basic progression in music that you can find. But the deal with the blues is that we don't just play the chord as a triad, but we add a dominant 7 on top. That's what we have down here. So here I have the chords laid out. This would be the 1 chords. So these are the chords that derive from the A minor scale. So you have A7, D7, and E7. Now there's a problem here. I just said that these chords derive from the A minor scale. But if we take a closer look, we can see that they actually don't derive from the A minor scale. The roots of those notes derive from the A minor scale because we have an A, a D, and an E in the A minor scale. But if we look a little closer and we see that we're using the chord grip of 1, 3, 7, which is a common voicing that we use to play the blues on the guitar, which looks like this. If we look at this third, we see that these notes are not in the A minor scale. So how does this work? Because we have a C sharp, we have an F sharp, and we have a G sharp and within the dominant 7. Now the 1s, the A, D, and E are in there, and the 7s, the G, the C, and the D are in the A minor scale, but the thirds are actually not. So how does this work? Well, this is what gives the blues a sort of open harmony. Because this C sharp, F sharp, and G sharp aren't in the scale of A minor, but they're actually in the scale of A major. So if we take a closer look, we can see that the A minor and A major scale have notes in common with these individual chords. But neither one of them are mutually exclusive to that one particular scale. So this dominant fingering of using the 1, 3, and 7 actually has shared notes from both scales. So if we go through them, A, the first chord is A, A7, so it has an A in common. So we have this A in common. We don't have that C in common with the A minor, but we have it in the A major, right? So we have that there. How about the 7? The 7 here. The 7, the G is not in common with the A major, but it's in common with the A minor. So we can make that one, let's make that one yellow so we can get a little color combination going here. Right, so the yellow, that'll indicate that this is coming from the minor, and the blue will be coming from the major. So we can see here that the first chord has two notes, two notes from the minor, and has two notes from the major as well. Though it's kind of redundant, but you can also include the root note in there. So they share those notes. They share the A, and what the outlier is the C sharp. So having that mixture of notes gives it a more open tonality. In this way, we can do what I'm going to talk about later, which is being able to actually switch between the major and minor scales very swiftly and harmoniously while you're playing this progression. So if we continue, we'll see that we have a D, right? And the same kind of pattern seems to persist. So we have a D here. We have a D. We have a D in our major. We have a D in the minor. So that's in common. We don't have an F sharp in the minor, but we have an F sharp in the major again. Now for C, we have a C actually only in the minor. Let me change colors here. So we have a C in the minor. So again, we're left with having two common notes with the root. You could call this is the 4. This is the 4. So again, this would be the 1 chord, the A7. The D7 would be the 4. Then you have the D takes place in both the A minor and A major. F sharp takes place in the A major only. And then you have a C, which only takes place in the A minor. So you see there's again a combination of the scale tones within this chord structure. Let's move on and do E. Now we see E, again, is in both places. We have an E in the A minor. We have an E in the A major. Now, for the G sharp, of course, we only have a G sharp in the A major. Now for the D, where do we have a D? Oh, look, we actually have a D in both A minor and A major. So that's how you can see that we have a mixture of notes in common with both the A minor and A major scale. And that is what gives us the ability to play both the A major scale over a 1-4-5 blues progression with dominant chords. And we can also play an A minor scale over that same progression, and it fits, though there's a difference in quality. Obviously, most of the time, the A major scale is referred to as having a happier tone, and the A minor scale is known to having a sadder tone or a darker tone. And I'll play a little bit of both of them later on so we can get an idea of this. But there's one more thing that I wanted to show you. And that's that we can not only derive from this that we can play both the A minor and A major scales through these chords, but we can also look at these dominant sevens as being a part of another tonal center. And this is why the chord scale video is important. So if you haven't watched the chord scale video, you got to check that out to understand this. So what the chord scale video talks about is looking at the fifth note of a scale to find out what the tonal center is. So instead of looking at the root note being A minor and that being, or A7 being the tonal center, what we're going to say is that all these chords are actually independent. We're going to say all these chords are independent and actually only reflective of another tonal center. So they're reflecting back to a 1 of some other chord. Okay? So we're going to say that these are the 5s now. Of whatever scale they come from. Now, what we want to say is, okay, well, what is A the 5 of? A is the 5 of D. Okay? A is the 5 of D major. Now we're going to say, what is D the 5 of? Well, D is the 5 of G. Okay? Now we're going to say, what is E the 5 of? Well, E is the 5 of A. E is the 5 of A, so we're going to put an A right there. So, what does that tell us? Well, that tells us that we can, instead of just using A as the focal center, as a tonal center, what we could also do is treat these chords as independent tonal centers and say that they all have a different key of which they relate to. So that A7 now relates to the D major, the D7 relates to G major, and the E7 relates now to A major. So that's now 3 different scales that you can use as you improv through your 1-4-5 progression. Now I'm going to grab my guitar. We're first going to take a look at how to switch between the minor and the major over the progression. Then we're going to use the 3 different tonal centers over each chord and see how that sounds. All right, so let's take the blues and play some major and minor scales over the progression and see how that sounds. That's the 1, 4, back to the 1, to the 4, to the 5, back to the 4, to the 1, 4, 1, 5, A minor, major, back to the minor, major, going to the minor, still at the minor, major, that's minor, went to the major, back to the minor, major, minor, major, minor, right, so that's how you can switch between the major and the minor scales while playing over the blues. Now, in this next example, I'm going to show you how we can take each chord and treat it as a different tonal center, in effect giving us the ability to play three different scales over the three different chords. So again, for the A7, we're going to play the D major scale. For the D7, we're going to play the G major scale. And for the E7, we're going to play the A major scale. Now, I'm just going to try to keep it pretty simple, just so you can hear the different tonal centers that we're going to be traveling to. And a lot of this actually might sound, maybe mimic some of the Mixolydian kind of sounds. And, you know, we'll talk about getting into modes and playing modes over the blues, but this is very similar to that. So let's give it a whirl. D major, G, A, G, that's D, G, A, back to D, G, A, that's that mix of All right, now that gives you a good example of how we can just take these three chords and play three different scales on top of them. If you heard there's some different colors in there, especially in the D and a little bit in the A. You know, when you're playing like this, it's more about contrast, and that's the idea of using all these different colors. When you're using these different scales, you have the ability to have a couple different colors to contrast what you're playing. So if you hear, for example, when I'm playing this in the D, it sounds very close to the A major, but maybe with a more Mixolydian kind of vibe. A little Mixolydian, maybe even a little Lydian kind of sound. But when I go to the G, it gets back to kind of the A minor tonality. You know? And then when I go to the A, then we're just back to that, you know, we're back home, kind of to the happy, you know, A major sound. So again, we have three sounds. That's G with the more minor. Then we have the A. And that goes back to the D. So there's some creative ideas of how to use different scales over the 1-4-5 blues progression. I hope that helps. Thank you.